Starting a collective is easy. Send some DMs, create the account, and voila, you've created a collective. That's the easy part. Maintaining the collective is the hard part. Keeping the consistency and camaraderie of the group going for years and years is a huge undertaking that, unfortunately, many collectives fail to overcome. Some groups are really close-knit but don't put out projects consistently. Some still put out music but have lost many members along the way, and some dissolve entirely. But in the funk scene, one collective in particular has managed to not only break this pattern, but also create a legacy that continues to reshape funk as we know it. Holy Mob was formed in late 2016 by a Brazilian producer named Thuggin. At its inception, the group was made up entirely of Brazilian producers, but soon they would invite others to join the crew, including Von Storm, Poir, and Gali. At this point, the group was assembling a compilation of solo and collab tracks, the original Holy Mob Volume 1. This initial iteration of Volume 1, which has long since been deleted, was released just a couple of weeks after the creation of the group. According to Von Storm, Holy Mob's honeymoon phase came to an abrupt stop as an argument erupted between Poir and Thuggin. Thuggin would end up leaving the group, and with him, so too did the group's overall productivity. Gali would leave the group too, telling Poir and Von that he would rejoin under one condition: recruit new members who would take the group seriously. Gali's ultimatum would lead to the creation of the roster that fans know and love today. In an attempt to save the collective, Von and Poir recruited rising talent in the scene, including Inteus, Caspian Rose, Shelter, Necroez, and VDB. Their recruitment strategy would quickly pay off. Soon, Holy Mob's members would be among the fastest growing artists in the scene, securing collabs with funk legends like Mythic and DJ Smokey in the coming months. In similar fashion to Purple Posse, Holy Mob would also put out 4 tapes in their first year, thanks to the excitement that came with this second wave of recruitment. Their growth throughout 2017 came with minimal roster changes too, with Redhands being the sole addition to the group that year. In October of 2017, the release of Volume 4 brought with it some notable changes for the mob. Perhaps the most jarring change was that Volume 4 was only previewed on SoundCloud, with the full album available exclusively on other streaming platforms. At the time, this decision was a little surprising considering the funk scene was primarily concentrated on SoundCloud. By only releasing the full tape on other platforms, the group was depriving themselves of tens of thousands of streams, but in retrospect, the decision started to make sense. Just days before the tape drop, Von posted a poll on Twitter asking which streaming platform his followers use most. Unsurprisingly, SoundCloud won the most votes, but Spotify came in a close second. Holy Mob's decision to release Volume 4 exclusively on other platforms appears to be a coordinated attempt to build their following on Spotify. But did it work? We'll touch on that later. Another change that came with Volume 4 was the introduction of the Say Your Prayers tagline, which appeared not only as a vocal tag in the group's music, but also as a logo that would appear on cover art and merch. Holy Mob was clearly trying to establish a brand for itself, and it was clear that, at this point, they were getting serious about the long-term growth of the group. Considering most collectives become inactive within a year, I'd say this played a huge role within the group's continued success. Then, to close off their first year, 4 of the group's members met up for the first time in Toronto. Whether they knew it or not, this meetup would come to shape the future of the collective, with 2 of their most well-known tracks being produced in person: Play Your Cards Right by Von Storm and Caspian Rose, and Yo Bitch a Fiend by Caspian Rose and Inteus. These tracks would debut on Holy Mob Volume 5, one of the group's most popular releases to date. Volume 5 also brought with it perhaps their most notable roster shakeup since the group's early days. Sometime after Volume 4, Holy Mob veteran Poir left the group. Meanwhile, they picked up Ponsuda, who had recently parted ways with a smaller collective called Evil Side. Despite this new roster creating one of Holy Mob's most widely beloved tapes, it was clear that from then on the group's activity was steadily becoming less consistent. It seemed like the collaboration had become less of a priority, and by now, many of the members were focused on their solo releases. Inteus, Ponsuda, and VDB would drop EPs that year, each of them impressive in their own right, while other members like Caspian Rose and Von Storm were dropping singles with funk heavyweights like Soudiere and Dre to Ski Mask. Moving into 2019, the group hosted a second meetup in Los Angeles, where they not only produced a few collabs in person, but also performed their first live show. Unlike the Toronto meetup, it doesn't seem like any of the tracks produced at this meetup would make it into the Holy Mob tapes, at least not that we know of. Despite this, 2019 was certainly a turning point in the group's discography, where some of their standout artists would begin developing what we know as their signature styles. That summer, Volume 7 debuted, including Cradle to the Grave by Inteus and Ice Ain't Colder Than Me by Necroez. Here we start to see Inteus adopting the Madlib-inspired boom-bap style that he uses today, and Necroez would start to show off his distinct blend of funk and wave. Even though some of the members were beginning to venture outside of what would typically be considered funk, these stylistic differences would give Holy Mob's discography a unique overall quality. Perhaps the best example of this was their next release, Volume 8, which opens with an ethereal funk wave remix of Don Toliver's No Idea by Redhands and Necroez. Immediately following, Inteus and Lucas team up to give us a psychedelic blend of funk and up-tempo sci-fi horror. Rather than letting stylistic differences create a disconnect between them, the group leveraged those differences to create unique variations of the funk genre. This trend has also continued with their most recent release, Volume 9, where we start to see Von Storm diverge into the more electronic style that he reps today. If you listen to the Mob on Spotify, you're probably not surprised to hear that the exclusive release strategy with Volume 4 definitely worked. Today the group sits at about 100,000 monthly listeners, more than most producer collectives and certainly more than any other funk collective. Their Volume 4 release strategy not only helped bring some of their audience to Spotify, but it also gave them a head start on the rest of the funk community, which would slowly begin releasing their music to Spotify throughout the coming years. By hopping on the Spotify train earlier than others in the funk scene, Holy Mob was able to take advantage of funk's surge in popularity on the platform. Several of their tracks, especially from their early releases, have amassed over 100,000 streams. A couple of them have even surpassed 1 million streams, something only a handful of funk tracks have achieved. Thanks to their explosive growth on the platform, Spotify now accounts for most of Holy Mob's audience. The platform's discovery algorithms have helped the group's music reach listeners they probably wouldn't have reached otherwise. This is probably how their music ended up in Tfu's Twitch stream being broadcast live to tens of thousands of viewers. When it comes to discoverability, Spotify has a competitive advantage to SoundCloud, so it's no wonder that Holy Mob's early adoption of the platform has helped them grow faster than any other funk collective. 9 collab tapes, and over 4 years later, Holy Mob has managed to remain pretty consistent despite minimal roster changes. While Volume 9 was the only tape they released last year, they kept the community engaged with a new sound kit and a contest that awarded a spot on Volume 10. Collectives rarely survive this long with a consistent roster, but when they do, listeners get to watch the group evolve throughout the years, not only as a collective, but as individual artists too. Since 2017, we've gotten to see Caspian Rose adopt a more mainstream plug sound, we've gotten to see Inteus give funk an up-tempo, old-school influence, and we've gotten to see Necroez and Von Storm take funk in a more electronic direction. While it's possible to observe these changes by just listening to each artist's individual discography, collectives like Holy Mob let us see how each of these evolving styles interact and collaborate with each other over time. Inteus and Von Storm's collab on Volume 1 sounds nothing like their collab on Volume 9, but by listening to the 7 tapes in between, we can start to see how they got there. Having such a close-knit roster for so long, it's unsurprising that Holy Mob hasn't made much effort to expand their roster. However, when Slight was recently considering joining a collective, they implied that they were interested. So perhaps they're becoming more open to switching things up. Whatever the case, I'm sure that the group will continue to prosper. Holy Mob is a case study in how a consistent roster can create long-term success for a collective. Despite several members taking their sound in a different direction throughout the years, they've leveraged these differences to add variety to the group's discography. Like I said, starting a collective is easy, but Holy Mob isn't just another collective. Thanks again for watching, guys. As always, if you want to see more funk documentaries like this, be sure to subscribe. And if you have any ideas for future videos, please let me know in the comments. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.